At 7:48 a.m. on a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941, the United States of America was not at war. The sun rose gently over the island of Oahu. The Pacific Ocean was calm. Palm trees barely moved in a breeze. In Pearl Harbor, sailors were waking up slowly, some still half asleep, others shaving, writing letters, or thinking about breakfast. For many of them, this was just another peaceful morning in paradise. Less than 2 hours later, more than 2,400 Americans would be dead. The United States would be dragged into the deadliest war in human history. And the entire balance of global power would change forever. This is not just the story of an attack. This is the story of how the world sleepwalked into disaster, of warnings ignored, of ambition unchecked, of a single morning that shattered an illusion of safety that Americans believed could never be broken. This is the story of Pearl Harbor. To understand why Pearl Harbor happened, we need to rewind, not days, not months, but decades before that Sunday morning. Because wars don't start with bombs, they start with decisions. By the early 20th century, the world was already scarred by violence. World War I had ended in 1918, leaving Europe devastated. Millions were dead. Empires had collapsed. The global order was unstable, fragile, and bitter. The war was supposed to be the one to end all wars. It didn't. Instead, it planted the seeds for the next one. The United States emerged from World War I stronger than ever. Its economy boomed. Its industries expanded. Its navy grew into one of the most powerful in the world. Yet despite this power, America chose a different path. Isolation. Most Americans wanted nothing to do with another foreign war. Congress passed neutrality laws. The public mood was clear. Europe's problems were not America's problems. Across the Pacific, however, another nation was watching closely. Japan. Japan in the early 1900s was not the Japan most people imagine today. It was not peaceful. It was not restrained. And it was not satisfied. Japan had rapidly transformed itself from a feudal society into a modern industrial and military power. It had defeated China. It had stunned the world by defeating Russia in 1905. For the first time, an Asian power had beaten a European empire in modern warfare. That victory changed everything. Japan believed it had earned its place among the world's great powers. But recognition came with limits imposed mostly by Western nations. Japan lacked one critical thing: resources. It had very little oil, very little iron, very little rubber, almost no natural resources needed to fuel modern industry and war. To survive and to expand, Japan believed it had only one option: take what it needed. In 1931, Japan invaded Manchuria, a region in northern China rich in resources. The international community protested. Japan ignored them. In 1937, Japan launched a full-scale invasion of China. The war was brutal, long, and merciless. Entire cities were destroyed. Millions of civilians were killed or displaced. The infamous atrocities shocked the world. The United States watched with growing concern. America had strong economic ties to China and believed in the idea of an open-door policy, equal access to trade without conquest. Japan's aggression threatened that vision. Tensions began to rise, not with gunfire, but with economics. The United States had something Japan desperately needed: oil. By 1940, Japan imported about 80% of its oil from the United States. Without American oil, Japan's military, its ships, planes, tanks, would grind to a halt. Washington knew this. As Japan continued expanding across Asia, the U.S. began applying pressure. First came diplomatic warnings, then trade restrictions, then embargoes, steel, scrap metal, aviation fuel. Finally, in July 1941, the United States froze Japanese assets and cut off oil exports entirely. To Japan's leaders, this wasn't just economic pressure. It was a death sentence. By late 1941, Japan stood at a crossroads. Option 1: withdraw from China and Southeast Asia, abandon years of conquest, and accept humiliation. Option 2, fight. Japan's military leadership believed withdrawal would destroy their empire and weaken the nation permanently. Pride, honor, and survival all pointed toward the same conclusion. If war with the United States was inevitable, Japan needed to strike first. Hard, fast, decisively. Their target would be the symbol of American power in the Pacific. Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was not just a naval base. It was the heart of American military power in the Pacific. Located in Hawaii, thousands of miles from the U.S. mainland, it housed the U.S. Pacific Fleet, battleships, cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. If those ships could be destroyed or crippled, Japan believed it would gain the time it needed to secure Southeast Asia and fortify its empire. The plan was bold, risky, almost insane. No nation had ever attempted an air attack of that scale from aircraft carriers against a distant target. But Japan had a man who believed it could be done. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. Yamamoto was no fool. He had studied in the United States. He understood American industry, American culture, American potential. He knew that if the U.S. fully mobilized for war, Japan could not win a long conflict. His strategy was simple and terrifying. Deliver a devastating blow so powerful that America would lose the will to fight. He famously warned that he could run wild for 6 months, but after that, he had no confidence in victory. Pearl Harbor was meant to buy time. It was meant to shock America into submission. It was meant to change history in a single morning. Back in Hawaii, few believed an attack was even possible. The Pacific felt vast, safe, untouchable. Radar was new. Intelligence was fragmented. Warnings were misunderstood or dismissed. Many believed Japan would strike Southeast Asia or the Philippines, not Hawaii. Pearl Harbor felt too far away, too unlikely, too unthinkable, and that belief would cost thousands of lives. In late November 1941, Japanese aircraft carriers slipped quietly into the Pacific, heading east. Radio silence was absolute. The fleet moved through storms and empty ocean undetected. By December 6th, they were in position. On the night before the attack, sailors in Pearl Harbor went to sleep unaware that enemy aircraft were already within striking distance. Church bells rang, bars closed, letters were written home. The world was about to change. By the first week of December 1941, war was no longer a distant possibility. It was in the air. It was in the cables crossing oceans. It was in messages written in careful, coded language. But in Hawaii, that sense of urgency had not fully arrived. Pearl Harbor was alert, but not alarmed. In Washington, D.C., President Franklin D. Roosevelt and his advisors were watching Japan closely. Negotiations between the two nations were collapsing. Diplomatic messages were becoming colder, shorter, more ominous. The United States had broken Japanese diplomatic codes, an intelligence program known as MAGIC. American cryptanalysts could read many Japanese communications, including messages sent to embassies around the world. These messages painted a clear picture. Japan was preparing for something big. What they did not reveal was where. On November 26, 1941, the United States delivered what became known as the Hull Note, a final proposal demanding Japan withdraw from China and Indochina. To Japan's leaders, it was unacceptable. In Tokyo, the decision was made. Negotiations would continue, but only as a distraction. The attack was already in motion. 6 Japanese aircraft carriers, escorted by cruisers and destroyers, cut across the North Pacific. They avoided shipping lanes. They traveled in harsh weather. They maintained total radio silence. This was not improvisation. It was precision. On board those carriers were over 400 aircraft, fighters, dive bombers, and torpedo bombers, trained specifically for one mission: Pearl Harbor. In Hawaii, U.S. commanders were focused on different threats. They feared sabotage by local Japanese residents more than an air attack from across the ocean. Aircraft were parked wingtip to wingtip to make guarding them easier. It made them perfect targets. Battleships sat lined up along Battleship Row, massive, powerful, and completely exposed. The idea that Japanese planes could strike Pearl Harbor seemed far-fetched. Too bold, too far, too unlikely. That assumption would prove fatal. On the morning of December 7th, just after 7 a.m., two young American radar operators detected something unusual. A large group of aircraft approaching from the north. They reported it. The response? They were told it was probably American planes arriving from the mainland. The warning was logged and forgotten. In Washington, a final Japanese diplomatic message was intercepted and decoded. It instructed Japanese diplomats to break off negotiations at precisely 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That alone was alarming. But delays in translation and delivery meant the warning reached Pearl Harbor after the attack had already begun. History would later ask the same haunting question: what if that message had arrived sooner? Sunday mornings in Pearl Harbor were slow. Bands played music, flags were raised, sailors relaxed. Officers prepared for church services. No air raid sirens, no battle stations, no urgency. Then, at 7:48 a.m., the sky changed. The first Japanese planes appeared low over the water, rising fast, red suns on their wings. Moments later, explosions ripped through the harbor. The attack had begun. The Japanese achieved exactly what they wanted. Totale surprise. Within minutes, battleships were burning. Aircraft were destroyed on the ground. Communication lines were severed. Pearl Harbor became a battlefield, and the United States was officially at war, whether it wanted to be or not. At 7:48 a.m., the first wave of Japanese aircraft struck Pearl Harbor. For the Americans stationed there, it was chaos beyond imagination. The sky, once serene, became a deadly canvas of smoke, fire, and screaming engines. Battleships, destroyers, and cruisers were suddenly under a perfectly orchestrated assault from above. The attack was meticulously planned. 183 aircraft launched from 6 Japanese carriers. Torpedo bombers targeted battleships in Battleship Row. Dive bombers aimed for airfields, fuel depots, and shipyards. Fighter planes cleared the skies of American aircraft. The Japanese pilots were trained to hit precisely, ship by ship, hangar by hangar. Speed, surprise, and coordination were everything. Every second counted. The iconic row of battleships, Oklahoma, West Virginia, California, Nevada, Tennessee, and Maryland, became the focal point of destruction. USS Arizona, one of the pride of the fleet, was hit by a 1,760-pound bomb. It exploded catastrophically. The ship sank almost instantly. Over 1,100 men died aboard Arizona alone. The sheer force of the explosion shattered the decks, collapsed bulkheads, and sent black smoke into the Hawaiian sky. USS Oklahoma capsized after multiple torpedo hits. Sailors were trapped inside, struggling in the rising water. The scene was horrific, though history would remember it with solemn respect rather than gruesome detail. Other battleships burned, listing, or were heavily damaged. Nevada attempted to escape, but was forced to beach itself to avoid sinking in the harbor. While Battleship Row burned, Japanese dive bombers struck Hickam, Wheeler, and Bellows airfields. Planes lined up on the ground were easy targets. Hangars erupted in flames. American fighters scrambled, but the element of surprise left them disoriented. Still, some brave pilots got airborne, engaging enemy aircraft in desperate dogfights. Their courage slowed the attack, but could not stop the well-planned assault. Second wave, relentless attack. About 50 minutes after the first wave, the second wave arrived. Their mission was destruction: ships, fuel depots, repair facilities. By now, smoke filled the harbor. Fires raged uncontrollably. Rescue efforts were hampered. Many sailors had no choice but to fight for survival amid explosions and debris. Japanese strategy was precise. Strike high-value targets. Maximize psychological shock. Inflict as much damage as possible in minimal time. By 9:45 a.m., both waves had completed their mission. The attack lasted less than 2 hours, but the destruction was monumental. The human cost: over 2,400 Americans killed, about 1,200 wounded. 19 ships damaged or sunk, over 300 aircraft destroyed. Every number tells a story of heroism, tragedy, and sacrifice. Sailors, Marines, and civilians acted bravely under extreme danger, some rescuing trapped shipmates, others manning anti-aircraft guns with courage that would become legendary. Japan's attack achieved its immediate goals. 1. Cripple the Pacific Fleet. Several battleships were sunk or heavily damaged. 2. Destroy air power. Hundreds of planes were destroyed on the ground. 3. Shock the nation. The psychological effect was staggering. Yet, Japan failed in key areas. Aircraft carriers, the most important assets, were not at Pearl Harbor. They survived. Submarines meant to finish off escaping ships were largely ineffective. Fuel depots and repair yards were damaged, but remained operational. These misses would become critical in America's rapid recovery and counteroffensive. Immediate American response. Despite being caught off guard, Americans reacted. Anti-aircraft guns fired, smoke rose, emergency crews mobilized, and rescue missions began even as bombs continued to fall. Messages were sent, officers organized defenses, and nearby islands scrambled for potential follow-up attacks. Courage and training, even in the absence of preparation, saved countless lives. The day Pearl Harbor died and America awoke. By mid-morning, silence fell. Smoke lingered. Fires burnt. The harbor was a graveyard for ships, a testament to planning and audacity. But the American spirit, though stunned, remained unbroken. What Japan had not realized was this. The attack, meant to demoralize and paralyze, had galvanized a nation. It transformed isolationist America into a country ready to fight with unmatched industrial power, determination, and resolve. December 7th, 1941, was a day of tragedy, but also a day that would ignite America's full involvement in World War II. By the afternoon of December 7th, 1941, the smoke over Pearl Harbor had begun to clear. The chaos of the attack lingered, but a new task emerged. Understand what had just happened. The United States faced the grim reality. The Pacific Fleet was battered, sailors were missing or dead, and key naval assets were destroyed. For commanders and civilians alike, the question was the same. How could this have been prevented? And what now? Survivors moved through smoldering wreckage. Sailors waded through flooded compartments, dragging comrades to safety. Battleships sat listing or partially submerged. Fires consumed fuel depots and repair yards. The smell of smoke, oil, and burning metal filled the air. Despite the destruction, the human response was remarkable. Rescue crews pulled sailors from sunken ships, provided first aid, and fought fires that threatened to destroy the harbor completely. In those critical hours, courage and discipline turned tragedy into survival. The numbers were staggering. USS Arizona, completely destroyed, over 1,100 lives lost. USS Oklahoma, capsized, hundreds trapped inside. USS West Virginia, California, Nevada, and Tennessee, heavily damaged. 19 ships in total were sunk or damaged. Over 300 aircraft destroyed. Fuel depots and repair facilities partially damaged. The Pacific Fleet had been dealt a severe blow, but not a fatal one. American industrial capacity and ingenuity would prove decisive in recovery. Admiral Husband Kimmel, commander of the Pacific Fleet, faced a daunting task: assess the damage, organize remaining forces, and protect Hawaii from further attacks. Communications were chaotic, intelligence incomplete, and morale fragile. Despite the shock, Kimmel ordered salvage operations immediately. Ships that could be saved were refloated, repaired, and returned to service. Battleships once thought lost would fight again within months. Similarly, Army commanders on the islands reorganized air defenses and began tracking potential threats across the Pacific. Back on the mainland, news of the attack stunned the nation. Radio broadcasts, newspapers, and telegrams brought the horror to every home. President Franklin D. Roosevelt received initial reports in the Oval Office. The attack had killed more Americans in a single day than any foreign assault in the country's history. Roosevelt called for a full assessment. Congress convened emergency sessions. The nation's leaders, previously divided over isolationism, now faced an undeniable reality. The United States was at war. On December 8, 1941, President Roosevelt addressed Congress. His words would be remembered forever. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The speech was not just a recounting of events. It was a call to arms. The House of Representatives voted overwhelmingly for war. The Senate followed suit. The United States was officially at war with Japan. Isolationism, the defining policy of the previous decade, was over. America had awakened, and the industrial might of the nation was about to be fully mobilized. Lessons learned and missed. Pearl Harbor was a devastating surprise, but historians later identified key failures. 1. Intelligence gaps. Warnings existed, but interpretation and communication were flawed. 2. Underestimation of the enemy. Japan's capabilities were considered improbable for a direct strike. 3. Harbor vulnerabilities. Battleships and aircraft were clustered and exposed. 4. Delayed reactions. Radar sightings and intercepted communications were dismissed. These mistakes would be studied for decades as examples of how overconfidence and assumptions can leave a nation vulnerable. Even in destruction, the Pacific Fleet retained critical assets. Aircraft carriers were not at Pearl Harbor and survived intact. Submarines, destroyers, and support vessels remained operational. Shipyards and repair facilities, though damaged, could rebuild. This resilience would become the foundation for the island-hopping campaigns and eventual victory in the Pacific. The morning after December 7, 1941, the United States faced a stark reality. Pearl Harbor was not just a local tragedy. It was a global game-changer. The shock of the attack galvanized the nation. Ordinary Americans, previously divided over isolationism, now united with a single goal: fight back and win. Factories that had produced consumer goods shifted overnight to war production. Automakers built tanks and aircraft instead of cars. Shipyards operated around the clock, repairing damaged vessels and constructing new ones. Every citizen was asked to contribute. Rationing, war bonds, and volunteer efforts became part of daily life. In schools, students learned not only arithmetic and literature, but also civil defense measures. The entire country became part of the war effort. The Pacific Fleet rebuilds. Despite the damage at Pearl Harbor, key U.S. assets survived. Aircraft carriers, untouched in port, became the backbone of the Pacific offensive. Submarines and destroyers, though limited in number, began patrolling the Pacific. Salvage operations refloated sunken battleships, returning them to service within months. Admirals and strategists worked feverishly to turn tragedy into advantage. Pearl Harbor, horrific as it was, would not stop the American war machine. It would ignite it. Within weeks, the U.S. began organizing small counterattacks. Submarines targeted Japanese shipping lanes. Early air raids attempted to disrupt Japanese expansions in the Pacific. Intelligence operations accelerated, cracking codes and intercepting communications with unprecedented speed. These initial efforts laid the foundation for the iconic battles to come, including Midway, Guadalcanal, and the island-hopping campaign that would ultimately bring the fight closer to Japan. Pearl Harbor had been meant to crush American morale. It failed. Instead, the attack created national unity. Citizens who had never considered military service enlisted in droves. Factories hired workers, including women and minorities, to meet production demands. Politicians and military leaders coordinated at a scale never before seen in peacetime. The resolve of the United States became a powerful weapon, as important as guns and ships. Global implications. The attack also changed the world. Germany and Italy, already aligned with Japan, declared war on the U.S. expanding the conflict into a truly global struggle. The Axis powers initially seemed unstoppable, but now faced a fully industrialized nation committed to total victory. America's involvement guaranteed that World War II would become a war of attrition, a fight of production, innovation, and strategy as much as a battlefield heroics. The legacy of Pearl Harbor, from the wreckage of battleships, the rise of new aircraft, and the bravery of survivors came a lesson. War is not only fought with weapons, it is fought with determination, unity, and strategy. Every miscalculation, missed warning, and underestimated enemy has consequences. Yet, resilience can turn catastrophe into strength. Pearl Harbor was a tragedy, but it also became the catalyst for a nation to rise to the greatest challenge in its history. Pearl Harbor was more than an attack. It was a wake-up call, a moment when the United States, previously comfortable in its isolation, confronted the reality of global conflict. The destruction was immense, the loss of life tragic, but the consequences extended far beyond the harbor itself. A nation forever changed. The attack united a country. Men and women volunteered for service, inspired by the courage of those who had survived the assault. Factories, previously producing consumer goods, became arsenals of democracy, pumping out ships, planes, and weapons at unprecedented speed. For the first time, the industrial might of the United States became fully mobilized. This shift was decisive. It ensured that America would not only recover from Pearl Harbor, but dominate the Pacific theater in the years to come. Pearl Harbor and World War II. Pearl Harbor directly altered the trajectory of World War II. U.S. entry into the war. The attack eliminated isolationist sentiment almost overnight. Within days, America was fully engaged, providing military power, resources, and strategic leadership. Axis miscalculation. Japan had hoped the attack would demoralize the United States. Instead, it galvanized an industrial and military juggernaut that would eventually turn the tide of the war. Global strategy shift. The attack forced allies to rethink strategy, allocating resources to the Pacific in addition to Europe. Without Pearl Harbor, the global scale and urgency of World War II might have looked very different. The attack, meant to destroy, ultimately strengthened the resolve of the Allied powers. While battleships burned and aircraft crashed, countless acts of courage emerged. Sailors manned guns under fire to defend their comrades. Medical teams treated hundreds of wounded, often risking their own lives. Civilians coordinated rescues and supported military operations in whatever ways they could. These stories, though often overshadowed by statistics, are the heart of Pearl Harbor, a testament to resilience, bravery, and the human spirit in the face of unimaginable odds. Today, Pearl Harbor is remembered not only as a military event, but as a symbol, a reminder of the cost of unpreparedness, a lesson in vigilance and strategic awareness, a tribute to those who sacrificed their lives so others could live in freedom. The USS Arizona Memorial stands as a solemn place of reflection, a reminder of the lives lost, the lessons learned, and the courage that arose in the aftermath. Pearl Harbor teaches us that 1. Surprise and underestimation have consequences. A calm morning can hide danger. 2. Resilience defines victory. Even in disaster, preparation and unity create strength. 3. History is shaped by choices. Decisions, both made and ignored, ripple through time. It also reminds us that courage is timeless. The bravery displayed that morning continues to inspire generations of Americans and the world. December 7th, 1941, was a day that changed everything. A day of devastation became a catalyst for unity. A day meant to crush spirits ended up awakening a nation. Pearl Harbor was a moment when history forced the United States to confront reality, and the nation responded with determination, courage, and an unbreakable will. The legacy of Pearl Harbor endures, not only as a reminder of tragedy, but as a testament to strength rising from the ashes. into the enduring power of a nation united in the face of adversity.